What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Cryptographics. And today I've got a video that you are going to want to pay attention to. And as a little bit of a disclaimer, it is going to be more technical. This is not going to be an easy video to just grasp if you don't understand Hex, if you don't understand Hedron, or you don't have a basic understanding of Icosa. You're going to need to watch some of my videos, some other videos from like Crypto Sloth or other guys in the community that have presented information for you to understand it better. So if you haven't, try your best to understand this, but then come back to this video once you understand Hedron, Hex, and Icosa to the best of your ability, and then come to this video. So before we get in here, because today the point of the video is to talk about the relationship between Icosa and Hedron to Hex, as well as the relationship between Icosa and Hedron and the whole system between these three tokens. So before we get into the data and before we get into what I want to share today, I'm just going to welcome everyone in here. Got about 32 people in so far. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. See, we got Vets in Crypto in here. Bang, bang. Welcome, my friend. We got Crypto Sloth in here. We got Living on Crypto. Crypto Sloth, my man. Hope you're doing well. I got to share this with you afterwards and send you the spreadsheet so we can go over this together. Goody, what's up? What's up? You got her chat in here. Let me just turn around my mic. I'm a little bit hot. King Gubby, what's up, brother? And yeah, guys, real quick, before we get in here and we start getting into all the data, share this stream out. Share it on Twitter, wherever you can, and let people know that the stream is on, and so they can come and understand what the data that I'm about to share is pointing to. And because you're going to want to this is going to be a new understanding for you about Icosa, unless you are very deep in this, as deep as I am, or even further ahead. You're going to want to pay attention. Noble Vices, what's up? What's up? We got Hardy Hexalorian, what's up? We got Karam. Let's go, Alex Ferreira. Yo, good to see everyone in here. All right, give me guys just 2 seconds. I got one thing to do here, and then we're going to get right into it. So, second, I apologize about this, guys. And yeah, give me 2 seconds here. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's share screen. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to bring up an Excel spreadsheet here, and we're going to talk about some data points that I've found with I think it's this one here. So let me just make sure that I'm good on screen. Okay, I'm going to blow this up a little bit here. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to stop looking at Hex, Hedron, and Icosa in terms of dollar value. They do have a dollar value, but the relationship in this video to one another, it's less tied to the dollar value. Now, what we're going to talk about here is important to understand that there is what's called a ceiling price, which does have obviously a dollar value, but we're going to understand a deeper value that comes into how these tie into the T-share and how Hedron grows over time or doesn't grow over time or whatever it does in relation to the T-share, and how Icosa acts in relation to the T-share. So let's go over what a ceiling price is over time. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit here. So with Hedron and Icosa, the ceiling price is in relation to basically in terms of Hex, because the most amount of value you can extract from a Hex stake in terms of Hedron is through a max length stake per T-share. And you need to do a max length stake to get the most amount of Icosa out of either both Hedron and Icosa. So over time, what causes this ceiling price is basically the T-share rate. As the T-share moves up and based on where Hex is, that's going to cause this ceiling. So basically what we're doing here to find this ceiling price, where it basically the value of the Hedron that you can get from a T-share is worth the same as the base amount of the stake itself. What you do is you simply find the cost of a max length T-share, which is basically just going to multiply the price of Hex by whatever the T-share rate is, or by a third of whatever the T-share rate is, because when you stake for max length, you're getting 200% bonus shares. So to get a T-share in the sharing pool, you only need to stake 1/3 of whatever the T-share rate is. So basically, these ceilings are relevant. And what we're going to do here in this video is I'm going to show you what happens over time with the ceiling prices in relation to Hex and Hedron. So the first thing I want to talk about, I did a little experiment. And if you watched, or if you saw my Twitter, you saw me ask the question, $1,000 in Icosa or Hedron today, which is the better investment in the future? You can stake and that's it. You can't sell, you can't do anything else, you can't add more funds. So that was the question. So what I'm going to show you here today is in relation to $1,000 investment in Icosa today versus Hedron. And you're going to see what happens here. It's really, really interesting. So $1,000, and this was based on October 3rd. I think the T-share rate's a little bit higher now. I think it's actually somewhere around here, which is 24,278 PEX per T-share. But for $1,000, you would get roughly 933.96 Icosa. For $1,000 at the prices on October 3rd, you'd get about 255 million Hedron. So what I've done here is, like I said in the beginning, we're trying to figure out, what the relationship between Hedron and Icosa are to T-shares and how they act in accordance with T-shares over time. So assuming that Hedron, you get one T-share max length for 5,555,000. Basically, you can figure out how many T-shares when Hedron has reached the ceiling price that this $1,000 would be equivalent to. And if we look here, Hedron is worth 45.92 T-shares if it ever hits that ceiling price, if you own 255 million T-shares, right? And Crypto Sloth, I know you're watching. Thank you for this, because you pointed this out to me. And so a lot of this data came from what you presented or what you share with me on that stream. So major thank you to you. And so what I want to point out here is over time, now a caveat to this, I've got a bunch of numbers in here where like Hex is going up like 80% a year. And you can see Hex is like $220, $224 by 2037. These numbers here are not as actually that relevant. Like you can change this to any number you want. Let's say it goes up by 40% a year, and that's it over the course of 15 years on average, including the dips and everything like that. It doesn't really matter. Like I've changed the prices here, and look, we still have 45.92 T-shares that this amount of Hedron would be worth if Hedron's at the ceiling price. So then what we're doing is I compared, okay, so if you put $1,000 in Icosa, how would it act in relative to Hedron in value of T-shares? And this is what I started to find. So the number of T-shares you would have started with in relation to Icosa would have been 3.7. Okay. And over the years, now this is going to fluctuate slightly based on the T-share rate increasing or not, but I'll show you what happens when we change the T-share rate over time, the trajectory of it, if it's a little lower or a little higher. Look at this. Over time, Icosa goes from 3.7 T-shares up to 4.34. Then over time, it gets up higher and higher and higher and higher to 39. And I've changed the trajectory of the T-share rate down to much actually lower than what the trajectory has been. And of course, this is not including yield. This is not including anything else. But if we go back, what's important here is, where is my number here? Sorry, one sec, guys. Where did I put that? 3 points. There it is right here. Look at this. Basically, Icosa is increasing in value in relation to T-shares. So Hedron is static. When you own a specific percentage of Hedron, when it hits that ceiling price, no matter how far in the future, how many Hex it costs per T-share, Hedron is only worth a specific amount of T-shares if it never surpasses that, if it hits that ceiling price. Obviously, if it goes past it, then obviously you get a little bit of a discrepancy, but that's going to be basically arbed down or basically utilized to make profit by people who see that discrepancy and brought down real quick. So assuming that it never goes past that ceiling price, then you're basically, the max amount of T-shares you could get for that $1,000 would be 45.92 at that ceiling. Now, what's really cool though, is what I did to find out this number here is I gave Hedron a bit of a head start. because at the time of when I did this data, the price is obviously far lower than where the ceiling price is right now. And so what I did was I basically took that $1,000 in Hedron, figured out what it would have been on the day, how much you would have got, and then brought it all the way up to the ceiling price. So basically you're giving a 12x head start in value. Now, if we look at the gains, because this is the gains in Hedron with the with the data that I have, which obviously this is just speculative, and this is going to adjust relatively to what the T-share is doing in the price of Hex, but you'll see why it's important in a moment. So with that boost of just, saying you bought $1,000 of Hedron, went straight to the ceiling, and seeing what it did price performance wise over time, let's look at this. So Hedron's X's and gains would have been all the way up to, this is just obviously for educational purposes, but it would have been in 15 years, if the price did what I did in this model, it would have been 20,289x. And if we go over to Icosa gains, the Icosa X's and gains would have been 17,000. What's interesting though is the relationship between Icosa per Hedron X's goes up over time. So basically Icosa is increasing at a more dramatic rate in T-share value than Hedron ever will. So if you take this, so what this is showing here is if you took $1,000 today and $1,000 of Icosa, and they basically stayed on their relative trajectories, in according to their ceilings, this is the kind of increase that Icosa would get over Hedron's ceiling, all the way up to 10.5x. And if we change the T-share rate, this changes dramatically. So let's say we want to do up to let's say we do 20% per year, because we've seen roughly about 19 to 23% of T-share increase year after year. Let's go back over here. And what we start to see now is the ratio of Icosa gains. Now, check this out. Hedron, over that time, even with the boost of going up to its ceiling from where it currently is, would have gained about 29,000x, and Icosa would have gained 36,000, almost 37,000x in that time. So what that means is basically Hedron and Icosa are acting differently in the system. And I'm going to pause here before we go any further, just to make sure that you guys are understanding what I'm saying, because this is a lot. And if you have questions, now's the time. I'm going to pause for a sec here, check in with everybody, and just see where everyone's at, if I'm making sense to everyone here. What's up? We got RH Max and Gifford in here. What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well. We got Crypto Wonder Podcast, Abarne, Crypto Gains Club. Yeah, guys, smash the likes. This video is important for understanding the relationship between Hedron and Icosa. So I'm not seeing any comments come in. I'll give it another couple seconds. But what we're not considering here is that in this Excel spreadsheet, the gains in Icosa are zero yield. Okay. So we're going to pause for a second. We're going to talk about what happens, why this is happening, what this means, why it's happening, and understand it a little bit more. So we need to look at over time what happens to the amount of Icosa that you can get for a max length T-share. So how this works is you basically take the T-share rate and you divide it by the number of Hedron that you can get for a single T-share, and you're dividing it by whatever the T-share rate is. And then because it's a max length stake, you get a 10% bonus. So I'm basically multiplying it by 1.1 here. Now, over time, look at what happens. It starts at 263, and then as the T-share rate increases over time, whether or not this is accurate, the trend stays the same. Every T-share is constantly outputting less and less Icosa over time, which means that Icosa is different than Hedron. Hedron is kind of like a future potential T-share. It's like 5,555,000 is like your locked in rate at whenever that point of the ceiling is between Hex and Hedron, that this amount of Hedron will always have or be redeemable for, in value at least, for a T-share. It doesn't matter if Hex is 374,000 or 10.2 million or 50,000. If that ceiling price is where Hedron's at, 5.555 million Hedron will always be redeemable for that amount. What's different about Icosa, though, is Icosa is always going down in the amount of Icosa, or the Icosa per T share is always going down. That means Icosa is getting more difficult to get based on a few things. It's getting more difficult to get based on just the T share rate going up and the price of hex going up, but it's also getting more difficult in relation to the amount of Icosa per T share going down. So there's a different metric with Icosa where over time, each T share or each Icosa is actually increasing in value relative to a T share. So, if we use this math here, which may or may not be accurate, but we can see the trend is still what's important here. It's not the actual numbers, but it's the trend and the direction these numbers go. So from day one, we've seen, day one, a single Icosa would have been about 0.38% of a single T share. And over time, a single Icosa becomes more and more valuable in relation to a T share. So that means every single day, your Icosa is going up in value relative to a T share, which means by holding your Icosa just for holding it is worth more T shares in the future. Let's go to figure out exactly how much we're talking about here when it comes to a percentage increase per day. Let's say on average, the T share rate goes up roughly around 6 hex per day. If we take that statement as true, on average is as a minimum, the Icosa value in relation to T shares is going to increase at 0.025% per day. Okay. So this is super interesting to note that Icosa goes up in value in relation to the T share over time. And if you consider the fact that the Icosa pool is a little bit less competitive at the moment, and you can basically earn both Hedron and Icosa in the Icosa pool, we got to understand this about the Icosa pool now. While you're staked in Icosa, the principal you have is going up in value in relation to the T share. The Icosa you're earning in the pool is increasing every single day in the amount of T shares that it's worth. And the Hedron that you're getting in that pool is redeemable, assuming that Hedron ever hits the ceiling price for a number of T shares. Basically, the number of Hedron you've got is divided by 5.555 million, and that's redeemable in the future in value for T shares. So you're basically earning T shares within this system. And we don't want to look at it so much as price. We want to look at it as, how it's relating to hex. And Icosa is acting very different than I had originally anticipated. So I'm going to pause here. And so let's see. Okay, so what's the relation to hex in Icosa gains, or Icosa in hex gains? So that's an interesting one, because you've got the price of hex doesn't need to move for Icosa to increase in value, at least with the ceiling price. And I want to pause here and talk about, why Icosa actually, I believe at least, that Icosa will hold its value. So I believe Icosa will hold its value because there's a difference between Icosa and Hedron. Icosa, you have to give up hex in order to get your Icosa. So to you and I, if you had to give up $1,000 to get something else, that thing is going to hold some value to you. It's like if you spend $1,000 to get, I don't know, anything, that thing's going to hold the value to you that it's worth, right? And that's why, and for the same reasons, the same logic, I believe, applies to Icosa. So because someone had to give up something like an actual asset, they had to trade an asset to get Icosa, it gives it value over time. And I believe because of that, and because really the only way to really get in is to go through the hex route, because it doesn't make sense to go through the hex route or the just buying it unless Icosa goes below the ceiling price. So now the difference between Icosa and Hedron is that Hedron could reach its ceiling price. It is depegged because people did get it for free, right? And you don't really have to give up anything to get Hedron. So I believe that Hedron is more likely to hit its ceiling and bounce or come close to it versus staying there. It may stay there over time, but we don't know for sure. And we don't know how long it'll last if it ever does hit that. So what's interesting between Icosa and Hedron is Icosa is more of a safer bet in relation to the value that you gave up to get Icosa will be held, versus Hedron is interesting. You don't get that. You don't have that relationship with Hedron, but because Hedron is below that value point of the ceiling, then you're actually getting an opportunity to get T shares in the future for a discount now. That's an interesting way of looking at this. Is Hedron's about 12x undervalued at the moment based on base values of hex stakes. And because of that, that means that if you equate, what you could get in max length T shares today with $1,000, you basically get almost 12 times that amount in the future if you bought today, because you will get T shares based on Hedron moving up in value, and then you're dividing the amount of Hedron you have by 5.555 million. So I hope this is making sense so far. This is a lot to take in, I know, and I really wanted to make sure, though, that we paint this picture. And in fact, I'm going to read some thoughts I have here just to make things a little bit more clear. Let me bring this up. So Hedron's a wild card, as it currently is undervalued and may or may not ever reach its ceiling price in relation to the price of hex and the T-share rate for a 5.555-day stake. The reason it may never reach the ceiling price is that Hedron was given free in surplus to early adopters, like I said before, in hex, who may never fully value Hedron. So until those users have either reduced their holdings to an insignificant amount or have completely left the system, there will always be likely an imbalance in sell pressure. The upcoming HSI auctions are possibly going to shift Hedron sentiment for the first time for multiple reasons. Hedron could see a supply shock and have its supply massively reduced, increasing future buy pressure as there are less tokens to sell. The supply shock could cause equilibrium to be restored in the amount of Hedron in existence versus B shares that have existed, or at least closer to it. Hedron could reach its ceiling price despite this, however, if the market decides to keep moving the price up. Of course, right? This is just how liquidity works and how price works to an asset normally. So once Hedron hits its ceiling price, every 5,555,000 Hedron tokens, once it's at that ceiling price, are equal in value to 15555 T-share in hex tokens, no matter what the T-share rate is. The dilemma is guessing which pathway to utilize. The dilemma is guessing which pathway to utilizing Hedron is maximizing its use case, because there's a number of different things to think about here. On one hand, if you stake your Hedron, you earn Icosa, which is always going up in value in relation to a T-share. The problem here, though, is that if you stake, you are unable to take advantage of Hedron hitting its price ceiling in order to get a max length T-share that each 5.555 million Hedron is worth at that point. You're also unable to participate in auctions to achieve the same effect should you be able to win an HSI for close to the minimum bid. Because with these HSI auctions coming up, if you can get a T-share or a number of T-shares for close to the minimum bid, you're kind of doing the same effect as waiting for Hedron to reach its ceiling price. You're basically getting it for a little bit of a premium, but you're still getting almost a 1-to-1 ratio of what the T-share spits out in Hedron versus what the T-share base value is worth. Okay. So the most efficient strategy that I can come up with is to stake some or all of your Hedron within the first 365 days since Icosa launch. After the first 365 days, there is no guarantee of yield of any size for staking pools. However, during this first year, the Icosa supply is hyperinflationary due to the SA, or the source address, burning Hedron through the proof of benevolence function, as well as a mass auction period of HSIs coming soon. This means you'll most likely be earning the most Icosa you'll ever be able to earn per Hedron staked in the pool. Now, this strategy could be a 90-10 split or any other percentage that you deem adequate. Now, as most people who hold Hedron own less than 10 billion Hedron, which you can go and check on Etherscan, most stakes will at most be 90 days minimum, which means users can make a stake and let it sit to earn Icosa while waiting for an opportunity to take advantage of Hedron hitting its ceiling price after the 90 days is up, as they can end a stake anytime after the minimum has been served. Now, the dilemma is this. Will Hedron likely hit its ceiling price within 90 days, or is it more likely to stay below during that period? Since no one can answer that question correctly, your percentage of staked and unstaked Hedron needs to be divided according to how likely you deem it is that Hedron hits its ceiling price within that period. Now, what's interesting too about the Hedron pool is that it is less prone to dilution, because when you stake your Hedron, there is only so much inflation of Hedron coming in to supply, versus Icosa, there's a lot more coming in. It's delayed, but you're a lot less likely to get diluted in Hedron. Plus, in these HSI auctions, the amount of Hedron total is going to deflate to some degree. Whether it is a couple 100 billion Hedron or 10 trillion Hedron, it will deflate to some degree, which means that your share of the pool should increase. So having said that, I think as most people who hold, I was talking about 10 billion Hedron. So now that we know that, you also need to weigh the T shares you could get if Hedron was at its ceiling versus the T shares you may get from the auctions, like we were talking about, as each Icosa will be increasing in its percentage of a T share it's worth daily. Okay. So let me just hide this, and I'm going to check in real quick and see how everyone's doing. Yeah. So this is the crazy thing about Icosa. Icosa is earning essentially T shares. It's gaining in value in T shares. So let's see. Would you suggest that we go directly to Icosa or Hedron? I think that you have to weigh this out for yourself, because it's not an easy answer. There is no actual answer to this question. The only thing that I can say is, if you're picking up Hedron now, if you truly believe that Hedron will hit its ceiling price in the future, then you're basically going to get whatever the discrepancy is between where Hedron is now and the price of it in the future. If it's 12x or 15x or whatever it is, then that means if you could spend $1,000 today on T shares, whatever that number of T shares that you would get would be is multiplied by basically the difference between the Hedron ceiling price and where the price is now. So what I'm saying here is, you can essentially get far more T shares at a discount by buying Hedron today, if you think that Hedron will hit the ceiling price. If. But you got to wonder, okay, the counter to this is, okay, if you put that money through Icosa, you're gaining value in T shares just from your principal that you got. You're also getting yield in both Icosa and Hedron. So you're gaining future T share, you're gaining percentage of a T share that's increasing over time, and you're gaining Hedron, which is a fraction of a constant fraction of a T share at the ceiling price. And you're also going through Hex as well. So you're basically locking up Hex to do that. But we don't know. It's impossible to say exactly how to play it, but you have to kind of gauge it on your own to see what you deem is the best play at the moment. Because I don't know. No one knows. No one can know. But understanding this relationship is what's important here. Awesome. Thanks. I got my Icosa stake running, and yield is huge. Made a good choice. Icosa has been a great, it's been great. Including what I've put into Icosa from the including the principal and how it's increased, and the yield plus the amount of Hedron from day one. It's basically been about 33% increase on, if I were to switch it back to Hex. Yeah, it's basically around 35% more Hex than I could redeem it for if I took that all out today and put it in. So it just shows you the power of Icosa. And let's see here. Buying Hex dips and owning Whatsa is the best bar market move. It could very well be. Let's see. This is super interesting, and it seems the play is buy Hedron until it reaches the ceiling price, then swap for Icosa. I mean, it could, but the problem here is that we don't know it's going to reach the ceiling price. So it makes it more difficult. You have no idea if Hedron's ever going to reach that ceiling price. And so it's hard to say, how much you want to allocate to Hedron, if any. I do think that, if you do believe that Hedron is going to reach its ceiling price, then you're going to get a number of X's in the amount of T shares you could redeem it for in the future, but you don't know. So let's keep going. Red Scroll, what's up, brother? We got Flat Earth Underground. Blue Bum, what's up, my man? It's not really a ceiling price, Hedron per Hex. I'm not sure if this is related to what I was just saying. Let's see. What if you buy Icosa only and skip the HSI part? If you're buying Icosa on the market, you are possibly going to get basically the only time it makes sense to buy Icosa on the market is when Icosa dips below its ceiling price. Otherwise, you're going to get more on the basically by just going through the HSI route. You could just buy it, but you're basically not going to get as much. It's going to be a small difference, but you're not going to get as much as you would if you went through the HSI process. So yeah, so it's the point where it strongly pulls up the hex price. So it's a ceiling. You're right. It's a ceiling price only in value, like 1-to-1 value. Okay, so like when Hedron reaches its ceiling price, or we'll call it its like equivalency point, then there's a 1-to-1 value exchange on the amount of tokens that you get from a T-share for a max like stake and the value of that T-share itself. So it can go above that. It's not a ceiling. It can absolutely go above that, but it will likely be pulled down whenever it does that, and who knows how long it'll stay if it does stay above that, but it could. It absolutely could. Yo, what's up, David James? How you doing, brother? Hope you're having a good day. Let's see here. Remember that Hedron burn is what determines Icosa supply along with T-share. That's a supply side issue, not necessarily a demand side issue. Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting here is I'm going to share another a piece of info here. And a lot of this, guys, I'm still chewing on. I'm still really trying to make sense of some of this in order to, look to see, what the relationship is between everything in the ecosystem. And one of the things I came up with today that's really interesting is it doesn't matter how much Hedron's burned. There's a specific relationship to the amount of possible T-shares that could be redeemable in the future in Hedron, and how many T-shares are outputted within the Icosa system. So you could change it. Like right now I have 10 trillion, right? This is just for Hedron burn sake to understand, the relationship to all this. And when it comes to this, you could literally do 10 billion. It doesn't matter. You could do any number and these numbers don't really change. But if you didn't notice here, watch this column here, and I'll explain it in a second. So remember, we just did 10 billion. And I'm going to change it back to 10 trillion. This number didn't change. Why is that? What does it mean? Well, what's super interesting is the amount of Hedron, the T-shares that are redeemable for Hedron, assuming a 1-to-1 value, are basically, it takes 2.2 T-shares worth of Hedron to be able to get one Icosa T-share. I'm not sure. That to me is crazy. Like, there's a relationship there that I want to figure out, but that's interesting to me, where it takes basically 2-to-1 for every 2 T-shares burned in Hedron, and based on like 5.555 million Hedron, you get one Icosa T-share. So basically, like 11 million or 11 and change million is equal to 239 a million Hedron is equal to 250 something Icosa at the moment, roughly. So that's interesting. And there's another relationship that hopefully will come out of this in the future as well. But this is what I'm playing with. And there's a lot to unpack here. So I'm going to pause again real quick and just see how everyone's doing. If everyone's following and understanding where I'm bringing you guys with this. So Johan says, how much Icosa do you need to own to be a whale? Well, I think it's around 10,000 roughly. Let me see. Let's go to app.icosa.pro. And let's go to, I'm going to remove this. We're going to go to another screen so I can show you guys what I'm doing here. And hey, and I know I got a few guys in the chat here. We got Blue. I don't know if Sloth's still in here. RH, yeah. If you guys want to come on, send me a DM on Telegram. Actually, I'll put the link in Telegram, and we will. And if you guys want to come on and discuss this, because I would love to hear some thoughts. Maybe do some discovery about Icosa kind of live on stream here. So if you guys are up for that, I'm going to send you an invite right now. I'll put it in the chat. Boom. So yeah. So basically, let's go to Icosa here for a sec. So we go to Icosa. Let's go to create new minimum Icosa stake. So I think it's around 10,000. It's 360 days. It's 10,000. So what about 8,360? So what about 7,000? 7,000 is a whale. Let's see. So 65, 200, 100, 450, 64, oops, 6450. I think it's just 6,500 a whale. Oh, geez. 6,500. So yeah, around 6,500 Icosa gets you a whale, gets you whale status at the moment. So I don't know how much that's about. 6,500 bucks, maybe about $7,000 US today, gets you into the whale side of the equation, which is pretty interesting. Let's see here. Oh yeah. So I hope that answers your question. And then amount of Hedron. Yeah, dude, I'm in love with this system. There's going to be so much more to discover in this. Really hoping that this data keeps accelerating the growth of, how we understand what Icosa is and its relationship to Hex, because there's an interesting correlation there that I don't really know how to put together, but it's crazy. Let's see here. Yeah, Blue Bum says, interesting. What do you think the Icosa Hedron price chart will do over time? I think that you'll see that's hard to say. Let's bring up the on deck screener. See the Hex or the Icosa Hedron chart right now. Go to so this is the Icosa Hedron chart at the moment, and so Hedron's gaining back again. So Hedron was on its run; it was gaining a ton on Icosa. It dropped away in value, and now it's kind of flattening out again. But what I expect, is Hedron to, I guess this is a tough one because Hedron has to run up to a degree to hit its ceiling price. So Hedron per Icosa has got to increase, and then realistically, it should slowly descend after that if it's going to hit its ceiling price. It should, Icosa eventually should overtake it, and this might be years and years and years in the future, but oh yeah, switch to price in Icosa. So let's see here. So Icosa should be lower in value. There we go. Okay, so Icosa has actually been going up in value relative to Hedron. That's interesting. So over time, honestly, we should see a very similar move to this over time with Icosa. Icosa is going to want to move up far faster in relation to the ceiling prices than Hedron. Hedron has a 12x move that it can do to catch up, but once it gets there, if you're buying in at the ceiling price, Icosa versus buying in at the ceiling price of Icosa on the same day, you're going to Icosa is going to move quicker. So it's super interesting to watch what is this ETH? That's not ETH, is it? Hold on, let me see. Sorry, hold on. Hedron Icosa. That is okay. Yeah, I see. My bad. That's the wrong chart, guys. Is there even where's the Hedron Icosa chart? I don't think there is a Hedron Icosa chart on here. Icosa with Icosa, no. Hex Icosa. Damn. Okay, maybe there just isn't one. Yeah, sorry guys, that's definitely the wrong one here. But what I expect to see is basically Hedron accelerate upwards to its point, and then it's going to come back down. And so Icosa should basically drop on the Icosa chart. It should be going up slowly or drop and then start to grow again over time, based on once Hedron hits that value. But the thing is if the T-share rate increases faster and faster and faster, Icosa is going to catch up even faster, because the biggest push to Hedron is both the price of Hex and the T-share rate. But Icosa has a third element, which it's because it's decreasing in how much a T-share rate gives you. That's an accelerant as well for the price of Icosa. So I'm not sure 100% what that chart's going to look like, but I could see it going quite quickly up in favor of Icosa. Now, I'm going to pause here for a sec, and I want to just frame an interesting relationship that I'm seeing with Hex, Hedron, and Icosa. So you got Hex. The game of Hex is in relation to the system, not in relation to you and I making profits or anything like that. If you're playing the system correctly, You're trying to get as many T-shares or preserve, if you only have so much capital, you're trying to preserve your T-shares in the future, right? So Hedron the game Hedron plays is trying to get its own value up to a certain point where it is redeemable for T-shares. So it's kind of like a time capsule, if the price gets up to a certain point. So, but Icosa is a time capsule as well as, growth engine. So by locking up your hex for the max length and minting Icosa, you're basically gaining on your T-share. So basically Icosa is actually almost like acting like the yield that you would have got from your hex, but it's sending it. It's a weird relationship. Icosa is interesting. I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen in the future and how to frame it, but Icosa is a different kind of time capsule. Very different. Gonzalez Andres says, all my calculations, Icosa had a 2.8 cent hex to 100 cent Icosa. So for every 2.7 cents hex increases Icosa double. If you could share your Excel, would be good. This sheet is a work in progress, and I do not want to. I'll share this on stream with the data that I want to share, but these are my personal. These are my personal findings, and I need to be able to adjust them and not. If something's wrong with them, I need to be able to not be spreading too much so people are using these for their own investment purposes. And I'm just sharing information with you guys so you can. It's the perspective that's the big thing here, not the actual data, but it's what the data points to. The actual data points that are in the Excel spreadsheet are a lot less important, like the actual numbers and how much things are increasing, but it's more the trajectory that we're interested in here. So these are all like side backs. It's great things are being built, but my main takeaway, cheap transactions on PulseChain will facilitate more velocity and financial entropy, making DeFi great again. PulseChain is going to be the bee's knees, man. And if you guys didn't hear yesterday, PulseChain's actually forking ETH 2.0. So the sharding and all the side chain, or not side chains, but the sharding, everything that's happening with ETH 2.0, I hope maybe the layer 2 solutions, like the scaling solutions as far as like ZK rollups, optimistic rollups and all that. Because, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but if PulseChain is a constant 5x throughput or 4x throughput on ETH, and it scales in the same way that ETH 2.0 does, then because this is what I think it's Tim Biko has said, they want to get between 10,000 and 100,000 transactions per second, using like layer 2 scaling solutions. And I mean, that means that PulseChain should be able to do more than that. Like, and if that 5x throughput carries over to the sharding and the layer 2 solutions for basically consolidating data through rollups, then we could see PulseChain be a complete. It could be a monster. It could do 4 or 5 times whatever the max transactions that Ethereum 2.0 could be, which is insane to think about. Even if it does 2 times, that's nuts. But if it does the same throughput with whatever Ethereum 2.0's max capacity is, dude, that's insane. That's absolutely mind-boggling. And it makes me realize that, I'm not actually worried about when PulseChain comes out, because, as much as it's like, so excited, we all have money tied up, and not that we can ever use it, or not that we know it's out of our system or out of our hands until it comes back, but it's still, knowing that it's coming with the technology that is being developed, it's worth the wait, knowing what's coming. Let's see here. Noble Vices says, Icosa is like a Hex debit card versus Hedron is like a reward cash from Hex credit card. Icosa's, I don't really know how to label Icosa yet, honestly. It's still, I understand what it's doing, but I don't know how to properly frame it. I don't understand the relationship quite enough yet to call it a debit card. I think it's something more than a debit card. I think it's something more. It's like, yeah, I'm going to have to figure out how to word that, because Icosa is not as simple to word as, you might think. So how much of a delay do you see this being, also given what was learned from BSC hack? Well, what I was just saying, I'd say is relevant to PulseChain, plus knowing that they're not actually, from at least what I got from Richard Hart's stream is that, we're not really waiting on BSC or doing anything to do with BSC anymore. We're doing Ethereum 2.0, which is far more secure, far more audited, far more tried and true. And so I think that there's no delay because of Binance Smart Chain. I think that there was a delay period because there was a decision made prior that was not made public to say we're not basing our work off of Ethereum 1 and also borrowing from Binance, but instead we are going to utilize Ethereum 2.0. And that shift is what changed the trajectory of launch, I believe. And so I think, you know, to say how much of a delay it could be, man, I honestly have no clue because I don't have a way of quantifying the amount of work it takes to take a new technology like Ethereum 2.0 and then basically bring it into your own, or basically change it into your own thing and make the improvements on that you need to make your system that you've already previously made still have the same benefits and efficiencies that you had improved on the original code. So it could be a bit, maybe we see 2023 at some point. I mean, maybe it's the beginning of 2023, maybe it's like the end, maybe I don't know, man. And honestly, at this point, I'm okay with it taking as long as it needs to. Because, you know, I know I've said a lot here, but you know, we're talking about Hex, Hedron, and Icosa. If you're participating in this ecosystem at all, everything's getting duplicated. And knowing that, you know, you can get, basically, if you just buy Hex, right? If you just buy Hex, you get Hedron, which is redeemable for a percentage of T shares or a full T share, you know, in the future based on where the price of Hedron is. And with that Hedron, you can also stake it if it's under a T share, and you could earn Icosa, which every Icosa is going up in percentage of T shares that it's worth over time. So basically, by just staking your Hex, if that's all you ever do, you get free extra percentage of T shares, and you also get a free, basically you get yield that is increasing in T shares, which you can also stake to earn more increasing percentages of T shares and more Hedron originally that you can either then redeem for T shares or stake to earn the whole system again. It's just like, it's mind boggling. And the whole system is really interesting because it's designed almost, it seems, to basically allow someone to get ahead in Hex, you know, because by the end of this, you'll have more T shares. If you flip this all back into Hex, you're pumping the price of Hex, right? You're increasing your position in Hex and you're just way ahead. So there's so much to think about here, guys. There's so much to think about. But that's why I'm not worried about PulseChain taking longer, because I know this is all going to get duplicated. And with PulseChain, I do believe it's likely that the T-share rate increases faster due to incentivized, ending of shorter stakes, because the gas fees are going to be slower. So I think that we could see the T-share rate move even quicker on PulseChain, which means that the prices of the price of Icosa and the potential ceiling price of Hedrons increasing alongside that increase in movement with T-share. So, so much to think about and so much to be excited for. You can find Hedron Icosa on Dex Screener. Hedron has been increasing in value compared to Icosa. Yeah, as it should, until it hits that ceiling price. And you'll see it kind of cap off, and then it'll kind of descend downward like this. And as the T-share rate ratchets up quicker, we'll see little dips down relative to from Hedron to Hex as well. At least that's what I think anyways. So let's see here. Yeah, never happy to see a big hack. Maybe just a little bit PSC, since it really highlights the need for PLS. I mean, it does, and I don't want to celebrate it as like this is why we need PulseChain more than ever. In fact, I think that, it's like a shame that the attention to detail that's being taken for PulseChain is not the standard. And I think it does show the importance, not in a celebratory way, but in in a way that's just like, damn, we're constantly realizing how much more important it is to have PulseChain out by everything that's happening that's negative in the ecosystem. So it's super unfortunate, but it is a good lesson, and a number of reasons why PulseChain is that much more important, is gaining importance by the day, essentially. Let's see here. Hey, no problem, Gubby. No problem at all. I love this stuff. So it's a lot of fun for me to come hang out with you guys and share with you my findings. Yeah, it should. It really should. Let's see here. Bob Lee says, it is only with the SAC wallets you get the copy, or does everyone get a copy that own anyone? Basically, if you own ERC20s, you're getting a copy on PulseChain. no matter what. If it's staked or unstaked, no matter what, if you own tokens, you're getting them copied. Exactly. So guys, I've presented a lot here. I know we've talked about a ton of things in the relationship between Hex and Icosa, but Hex, Hedron, and Icosa. But I want to open up to you guys. If you have any questions on what we've talked about today, if you want me to be a little bit more clear on some things, if you want me to break things down a little bit more, maybe go back and touch on some things, now's the time for you guys to ask those questions. Let me bring up this spreadsheet again here. Let's see here. Window. Let's go to this guy. All right. And then real quick, I just saw a question come in from Johan Gulech. A question totally out of subject. Do you know what will happen when all the copies of ETHW that got sacrificed for PLSX? Those should be copied into the same wallet that had the sacrifice. It's a good question. I don't fully know. I think the only thing that makes sense to me is that the wallet that holds all the tokens basically got a copy of all those tokens. And that's the only thing I can see, the only thing that makes sense to me. So we'll leave it at that for now. But let's go back into the spreadsheet real quick here. So what's cool, guys, is we're starting to learn more and more about the Icosa system and the Hedron system and how it works relative to Hex. And it's making me more and more excited by the day. Actually, give me 1 second, guys. I'm realizing I'm going to have to sneeze. Maybe. Oh, maybe not. Oh, God. Okay, I think it's passed. Cool. But it's making me more and more excited about the Hedron Icosa relationship and how it's going to power Hex over time. Because, if people are making gains in Icosa, that could flow into Hex and pump the price of Hex, and I think that's the ultimate goal, is to get more Hex. So Icosa and Hedron empower people to do that and to lock up more Hex for longer, so what price range is Icosa selling? Well, Icosa is currently selling at, let's see here. I'll show you guys. Let's go to Dex Screener, and I'm going to bring up Icosa. And I know I'm not sharing my screen yet, guys. Just give me 2 seconds here. Let's see. Okay, so let's switch to price in Icosa. So basically, where is the ratio here? So this is what the Icosa chart's doing. As you can see, this was a big jump in the T-share rate. And if we go to xfire.io, and I'll share my screen to a different tab. We're going to go here because I want to show you guys something as well. Loading the data. So there is a estimated, I think it was like a 500 Hex jump in T-share rate is expected to upcome within the next number of months. And every time there's been a big jump in the T-share rate, we've seen a massive jump in, let's just type this in. We've seen a massive jump in that ratio between Hex to Icosa. And this is going to happen continuously over time. You can see that it's gone up, just kind of consistently moving with the T-share rate. And then we had that 745 Hex per T-share increase and went boom, way up here. And then we've been slowly tracking up. And then this is really cool, actually. What we've seen is, look at this wick. So someone sold, I think it was like 33,000 Icosa and just wrecked the price for a moment. And then boom, everyone bought it back up and we're still on that same trajectory. So what this shows me, at least, is that Icosa is, people are seeing the value in Icosa, and especially because these auctions are coming up. Because the more Icosa you have in the pool, the more you are going to earn in Icosa and maybe some Hedron, but more important, just primarily Icosa. We don't know what's going to happen with the Hedron yield, but we know the Icosa yield should be pretty damn good. And this value is going to increase over time. And maybe we see some dumps. Maybe we see some dips somewhere down here. Maybe it goes like this. And then over time, it takes a little bit of time, but it comes back up. We could see some of these in the future. But because, there are people that see the value, and you can basically mathematically track what the value of Icosa is and how it's increasing your relationship to the T-share over time when it's at this price, you're basically getting a massive discount on T-shares, on growing percentages of T-shares in the future by buying Icosa, right? So Icosa is a different animal, and I think it's really going to hold its value. So let me go back here, and I got King Gubby's got a good question. What will your Hex copies T-share rate look like? Lower price, start at 0. Will you own more T-shares on PLS network than the ETH stakes hold? It's a system stake copy. So everything that is happening has happened to Hex up till now. Like if the Red Scroll Net, it'll start identical to ETH, and they may act differently after that. But whenever the system state copy happens, whatever the T-share rate was on Ethereum at that moment will be what the starting point is on PulseChain as well. And then they'll move on their own from there, just based on the activity within the Hex ecosystem by users. Blue, what's good? So many familiar faces in here. It's good to see everyone in here. So really, guys, I think that's all I had. I think that's, guys, I'm pretty sure that this is everything that I wanted to present you guys today. I hope it all made sense. I'll give it a few more minutes. We'll hang out. If anyone's got any more questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Can you limit order Icosa on their DApp? When you're saying their DApp, I don't think, on the app.icosa.pro, definitely not. I don't know if we go to like matcha.xyz, if you can do that. I haven't actually tried. Let's see, Icosa is not on matcha. 1inch.io. Let's see. Yeah, I have to do that later. There might not be a way to do that at the moment. I don't know if you can limit order Icosa right now. I have to check on that. You should be able to, but I don't know if there is. Okay, I'll match it. Maybe I just couldn't. It just wasn't working for me at that moment then. So you can do limit order for Icosa. And Hexbear says, I think PulseChain is closer than people think. The BSC failure is not as much of a setback as it may appear. No, it's really not. And especially knowing that we're forking ETH 2.0, not the Binance Smart Chain code, which is a huge relief, honestly, knowing that they don't have to overcome something like that. So I think that's really cool. And I think we're getting close to the, hour mark. Guys, I think that's it. That's all. That's all I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope that this even made sense. I hope this got you thinking about what the relationship to Icosa and Hedron have to Hex. And do your own thinking, do your own research. This isn't meant to be investment advice. This isn't any advice. This is just things you need to think about when it comes to, how do you want to participate in the Hex ecosystem, and how do you want to, what method do you want to use to either maintain or gain on your T-shares, So thank you guys all for being here. We got 134 still in the chat. You guys are all amazing. And please, guys, if you haven't already, smash the like button. Let's get this video out to as many people as you can. If you haven't already, go ahead and share the video on Twitter or whatever social media that you're on. Make sure you get this out to anybody who is in the Hex, Hedron, Icosa system. And let's get this out there. And if you'd like to support the channel, guys, because it takes a lot of work to do this stuff. If you want to support the channel and help me keep going on so I can do this every day, then please go ahead and either join the YouTube memberships. There's a link in the description to donate if you want to do that as well. You can buy some cryptographics merch, or if you want to learn from me directly, you can go to cryptographics.com and you can book a one-on-one call there to speak, and I can educate you with basically what I've learned and how I've been learning with all this. So, and finally, guys, there are always scammers in the comments. If it's not my highlighted cryptographics name bar, it's not me. Please don't engage with them. If you want to ask me a question directly, you can go to cryptographics.com and you can ask me a question in the contact form, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your weekend. Great week. I'll catch you guys in the next one very soon, which will be on Monday with Maxim Broadcast. We'll probably go a little bit into this, as well as some mindset stuff, whatever else comes up. It's going to be a great stream. You guys are not going to want to miss that. So again, thank you guys for being here. Hope you guys have a great